Life for me growing up was pretty typical suburban Christian family, and we were always at church, and I think my dad did a good job of bringing the word into our home, and I had a good example in my parents of what a healthy relationship looked like, and so it was a really good life. I mean, a typical, again, I was born and raised in Santa Clarita, everything you would expect from that statement. Growing up as a pastor's kid is early on very cool. You had pastor's kids that were, that I looked at as being totally perfect. And then I looked at myself and said, wow, I'm not like that at all. And I don't really deserve to be a part of this. So I walked away from the church and started to live my own life. And I think that's really when, obviously, about a 10-year absence from the church or 12-year absence from the church started for me. And I'd walk in his garage, they were all on the shelving like the video store, and it was like walking behind that red curtain. And as a 7th grader, again, I had kind of minimal exposure to any pornographic images, certainly none from home, so I didn't even know what I was looking at. For an introduction to pornography, I'd pull 2 or 3 videos out at a time. I'd sneak them in my, even through school, sneak them in my locker, sneak them back home, try to watch them when my parents were out. I had an old video camera that I used to shoot videos on, and I'd also use it to watch through the eye hole. I'd watch, these images and pornography and the images that I saw, on the TV screen or, with the videos. In terms of my own perception of relationships, that was real to me, as weird as that was. But the thing about pornography that is really tough is that it brings you down to a point that you just can't imagine you'd ever get. And before you know it, what was normal, so you thought, is now in a place that I can't even talk about the kind of things that I'm looking amongst my friends, because I'm looking at things that now I'm ashamed of. And I thought, well, geez, how did that happen? Now I had a whole new set of secrets. I had things I couldn't talk to anyone about because now I wasn't normal. So Melissa and I go back a long time. We actually went to prom together, and I was good friends with her boyfriend at the time, and she was friends with my girlfriend at the time. And so we went to prom together, and we knew each other from high school, really from senior year. Spent a lot of time as a big group of about 10 or 12 of us. And then Melissa is kind of there, and she's a friend, and I'm falling for her really fast. And she's funny, and she's beautiful, and I'm falling in love with her. So Melissa and I get married in 2008, and then we immediately buy our first condo, and everything is going. All of a sudden, my life is back on track, right? And it was a pretty normal marriage, right? I got up, I went to work, I came home, I still was kind to her. We still were progressing on our family goals, if you will. We're looking at things and thought maybe one day we'll start a family. And I'm this husband now in Santa Clarita, but I'm spending hours just looking for this stuff, and it's almost like I'm in a buzz, right? I'm in front of the screen, and I'm just in this zone, and nothing else in the world matters. Pornography now is something I'm using to medicate whatever I'm feeling that is just not comfortable. So the next, you just take it to the next thing. Well, when I have kids, I'll definitely stop, because I don't want to be that guy. I don't want to be that dad, who's still watching this stuff when he's got kids. Who does that, right? That's too much. The other thing you do is you justify, you say, well, I'm bad, but I'm not that bad. And then all of a sudden we got the news we were pregnant with Aubrey. I said, wow, this is really incredible, So, it's 2011. Aubrey's born. And in that moment, for me, seeing my daughter born and knowing no matter what, I don't know anything about this baby, but I love her with everything I've got. And in that moment, something whispered to me this idea that this is how God looks at us. And then in this moment, I see my own child. I say, wait, this is how God sees us. No matter what, He loves us. That's my God, right? And that changed my life in a second. I'm sitting there watching this baby, and that's when God pulled me back. My dad and I have always been close, but now it was like, hey, I'm going to this new church. It was called Crossroads, and come and see me. I'm gonna start playing in the worship band. Can you come see me? Okay, so I came to Crossroads. I see my dad play, and then it's Mom's birthday. Mom really wants you to come to church. Okay, I'll come to church. And so Melissa would come with me. And so we started to get exposure again to the church, both Melissa and I. At that time, some things happened at Crossroads, right, that really showed us who God was for the first time in our lives. My mom brought her to a Bible study. I got involved in men's relay at the time, and I realized my life had to change, 100%. Like, it had to change, and I gave up everything but one thing. I couldn't give up pornography. I just couldn't. I wouldn't. Maybe that's a better word for it. I didn't feel comfortable in church. I didn't feel comfortable even telling anyone that, hey, I've received the gospel now. I'm a Christian, because man, if they only could walk inside my home, and if they saw what was in my browsing history, and if they really saw it, they'd know this whole Christianity thing is a joke. That's what I thought. And then in one of the small groups I was a part of, somebody said, hey, there's a new program out. It's called the Conquer Series. And it deals with this idea of sexual purity and pornography addiction. And so I went to the first meeting, and I didn't know what to expect. Quite honestly, I thought we were gonna go there and they were gonna talk about pornography, and I just hoped at least these were gonna maybe be some material that was specifically driven towards what I was struggling with. So I get in the first Conquer class, and there's another gentleman at church who had started the class and who had really helped to lead the first session. And he started, and he opened up and he said, hey, I'm gonna shut the door. Here's my story. And he started to talk about his story. I knew I wasn't alone at that point. I know that God knocked on the door of my heart, and I kind of stepped halfway in that door. This guy he's been pulled completely out by God, and I want that. And I'm not alone. I'm looking at other guys. I'm thinking, wow. And you hear their stories, you see, oh my gosh, we're all in this together. And in this little room at Crossroads, there was hope that I could actually get through this one aspect of my life, which I just couldn't uproot. So not only did I start to achieve victory over my own sin, I stopped looking at pornography, which 20 years, I would never believe that would happen. But even, I didn't realize how big our God is. I had no idea. And I went to this class to be healed of my addiction to pornography. But more importantly, God started to work in my life. In every aspect of my life, I removed this barrier between myself and God. That's how it feels, because I lifted this, said, okay, God, I'm just gonna trust you, and I'm gonna surrender this to you. I'm gonna go through this program. I'm gonna talk about things that I think are gonna humiliate me. But I'm gonna let you work, Lord. And he started to work. Oh my goodness. He started to work in my life. Somebody came up to me one time and said, man, you're really an encouragement to me. They're in the class, because you're so open and you're so honest about what you're going through. And that was the first time that I realized, wait a second, God is working through me to help other people. But I'm so much a work in progress. How is that even possible? And then one of the leaders of the Conquer group at the time, he sat me down and he said, God works through your weakness. And how on earth would he take the thing that for 20 years I could not get rid of? But he did. And he's used this as a point where now this has become a ministry I'm involved with. He's given me a wife who has every right to feel ashamed. And she's really come alongside of me and supported me. And if you know my wife, Melissa, you know, she's strong in a way. She has a way of just pursuing what's right, you know? And I think it came to full, fruition when she's talking with other women about this in her group, and you see God working through all of that. She has every right to just say, I don't want anyone else to know. I don't want anyone to think of us differently because they see us at church. I'm friendly, I wave to people, and I don't want them to think. She has every right to say that. If I were in her position, that's probably what I would say. But she didn't. God gave me that. So in my weakness, he's allowed to work. God's brought me to a place that is so much better than any place I've ever been. And I look in the future, and I believe that there's even better, places for him to take me. Now can he look into my soul and start working on, me having mercy for other people? Can he help me to work on what it really means to live out the gospel in the rest of the world? Once you put this out there, you don't get it back. And that used to scare me. But now, and why I'm getting emotional is because now, this is what God really does. If I could teach my children that, maybe they'll know the real God and not just the God that smiles and waves as you're on your way to church, This is the God that gets down into those dirty places that people are afraid to talk about, and the God that actually works. Now it's a good kind of secret, almost, I feel like, wow, I was minimizing God my whole life. And now I feel like I finally have a little taste of what he's really all about.